If I were to ask you how many bodies you have, you would most likely hopefully say 0. Not because you're a virgin, but because you're already highly incapable of lifting that severely overweight arm of yours to apply the deodorant your father gave you for Christmas 10 years ago before he left you to go have sexual relations with your dead grandmother. Overwatch heroes, however, we already know have at least a few bodies. But in this video, we're going to find out which Overwatch hero would be the best serial killer and how effective their kit would be in assisting them in getting away with murder for an extended period of time, starting with D.Va. Now, in my opinion, I think D.Va is just way too nice and shy to actually want to murder people. Like, I think if you were to force her to become a serial killer, she would probably just turn herself in after one body, unless she were to use her mech. But if that was the case, she would be more of a mass murderer than a serial killer, so we're not going to count that scenario. So I think D.Va would be an F-tier serial killer, just based on the fact that her personality has always revolved around saving people, and I feel like she would crumble at the fact of having to murder an innocent person. So I'm going to keep her here in F-tier, but I guess now's the perfect time to explain these tiers to you. So I've divided the tiers up by body counts. Here at F we got 5 maximum, which means if they got 5 kills or less they'd be here, and then they gradually increase throughout the tiers, and then when you get to S you get 100 plus. So any heroes that would easily get 100 plus bodies without getting caught would go up here. Sort of similar to the next hero we got on the list. Let's talk about Doomfist. Now a lot of y'all been commenting on my recent videos telling me how much of a criminal Doomfist is and how easily he like broke out of prison and shit, and apparently this man's gauntlet is pretty much the fucking infinity gauntlet, because he can just punch you one time and you fucking disintegrate into thin air. So I think in terms of leaving behind evidence, Doomfist's kit would benefit greatly, just due to the fact that if he punches you, there's nothing left of you. And he also has great mobility, so even if he were to be discovered, he could just hop and punch away or airstrike away, and then plan and plot on how to kill the witnesses. So I think Doomfist is our first candidate for S tier, because he would definitely rack up well over 100 bodies throughout his reign. Next up we got Junker Queen. Now here's the thing with Junker Queen, right? You would think I would give her S tier, because if you watch her cinematic, she just easily outsmarted all of her opponents, and with minimal effort became the queen of Junkertown. But I think in terms of killing people effectively and without being noticed, she wouldn't exactly be too efficient at that, because her kit is rather loud. Like, her main weapon is a shotgun, and if she wants to move fast, she has to shout, which is not very stealthy. And I feel like she just doesn't have the brains to be able to last as long as the other heroes above her. But she's definitely not bad, so I think I'm gonna give her C tier. Next up is Malga. Now this one's pretty obvious, but he would definitely be a shit serial killer. Like I said with D.Va, Malga would be an S tier mass murderer. His machine guns would be way too messy in order to conceal evidence. He's slow as fuck, and he may be a meaty motherfucker, but he can't eat bullets forever. So I don't think he'd be as bad as D.Va, because I think he could mow through a lot of people without being taken down instantly. So I'm gonna give him the tier right above D.Va at D tier. Next up we got Orisa. Now Orisa's like a month old, right? Meaning she doesn't have nearly enough IQ to be able to last long in the serial killer market. Her kit is great for murdering people rather quickly and also having high survivability. But there is just no way this fucking infant is going to rack up more than 5 bodies without being taken down. So she's going right beside D.Va in F tier. Next up we got Ramatra. Now I don't know this for sure, but I take Ramatra to be very smart, because if you look at him, he looks like a rather studious fella. And in terms of murdering people rather quickly, he's got a great kit for that. He can kill you from long range and just decapitate your head off, or if need be and you're in pummel distance, he can start fisting all the witnesses right in front of him, leaving no trace behind. And I think Ramatra could blend in quite easily, like in public, especially if we're talking about the Overwatch world, where there's not only humans but Omnics running around and shit too. So he would be like a Dexter and shit, walking around, not looking sus at all. So yeah, I think he'd be a very effective serial killer, definitely not as good as Doomfist, so I'm gonna give him an A tier. Now next up we got Reinhardt. Now here's the problem with Rein. He would definitely get away with maybe killing like 25 or so, but he's a very cocky motherfucker. I mean, he's the reason he got his friend killed in the cinematic. He'll get too ahead of himself and too stubborn, and he'll go into a situation trying to kill people where the odds are not in his favor, and that's probably what would get him busted. So I think I should give him C tier right below Junker Queen. Next up we got Bubba, and I reckon Bubba would be the first known serial killer that nobody tries to stop, because no serial killer hunter or any federal agent is gonna want to fuck with Bubba the second they lay eyes on this intimidating and sexy man. I think the best course of action of avoiding Bubba's reign would just be to evacuate the city that he's currently in. Treat this motherfucker like an SCP, because nothing's gonna stop Bubba if he decides to turn bad and start murdering anybody in sight. So I'm gonna put him at the top of S tier for sexy. Next up is Sigma. Now the thing is with Sigma is I don't think he's an S tier killer, but he would definitely kill a lot of people just due to his sheer insanity. Like if he needed to, he could just suck his victims up into a black hole, leaving absolutely no trace behind. Like there would be no proof that this guy's a serial killer. There could be 400 eyewitnesses staring at this man murdering somebody, and if he sucks him into a black hole, there's nothing they can do to prove that. The problem is, however, I think this man is so clinically insane insane that he would do something so mind-bogglingly retarded to get himself caught. So I can't put him at S tier, and I'm gonna have to put him down here at A tier right above Ramantra. Next up is Winton. Now if we're talking about the lore accurate Winton, he would never be a serial killer. Like, this monkey man would kill somebody on accident and just instantly turn himself in. He's just too nice of a character to maliciously murder somebody. So I think even if you were to force him to start killing people, his mindset wouldn't be malicious enough to be able to remain inconspicuous. So unfortunately for Monkey Man, I gotta give him a solid F tier. Next up is Zarya. Now Zarya has a pretty decent kit. You know, she could use her little beam thing to fucking molest you to your grave, and then use a bubble to lift your remains and fucking fling him out to outer space or some shit. And I think she'd be smart enough to conceal her identity for a while. But I just think since she has pink hair, all it would take was one missed witness and everything would go downhill. So unfortunately, I'm gonna have to give her B tier. Not bad, but I think if she were to dye her hair a different color, she could probably make it to A tier. You gotta remain unnoticeable and undetectable in this line of work. And Zarya just looks too fucking easy to draw. Next up is Ash. Now to be honest, Ash would probably just send Bob to do like all of the work, and that would actually be a genius idea, because if she summons Bob, she could just go elsewhere and Bob could just rack up infinite bodies for her. But eventually Bob is bound to be traced back to Ash, and she doesn't really have any stealth abilities or anything that she can do to rack up bodies herself without risk of getting caught. Like, her two main weapons are some of the loudest guns in the game, and unless she's in the middle of the Sahara Desert or some shit whilst killing her victims, there's definitely gonna be somebody in earshot that'll pick up on the fact that somebody just got their fucking brains blown out. So overall, Ash is a pretty mid killer, so she's gonna go in C tier right between JQ and Ryan. Next up we got Bastion. Now here's the thing with Bastion. Obviously his kit would make a massive mess when murdering people, which means forensics could easily trace back to Bastion, but there's just one serious question. Who the fuck is gonna stop this man? Like, if you try to apprehend Bastion and arrest him for his crimes, he's just gonna turn around and blow your cerebellum away 1444 style. There's nothing you could do to stop this guy. Like, he can on command call in airstrikes and take out mass amounts of targets at once. So Bastion is the easiest S tier by far. Next up is Cassidy. Now I feel like Cassidy would by default get away with murder multiple times and probably be a B tier or A tier killer, but you gotta take into account that he has this one ability called High Noon, and if he were to stand on top of the Empire State Building at high noon, this dude could rack up hundreds of thousands of bodies in less than 10 seconds. His ability is so overpowered that I genuinely think he would be the most effective serial killer in the entire cast. So he's getting S tier. Next up we got Echo. Now Echo has arguably the best kit in terms of getting away with murder, because she could just copy somebody else's form, do the deed while in that form, and then transform back into her normal self, and nobody would know that she was the one that killed them. And hell, if she were to copy Cassidy, she could just do the same thing he does and go into a highly populated area, and since she's Echo and she gets alt charge a lot faster than everybody else, she could just repeatedly high noon over and over, racking up more bodies than Cassidy. So Echo actually has the perfect kit for this. So she's going above Cassidy in S tier. Next up is Genji. Now immediately this man's going in S tier, simply because he's a trained, sophisticated assassin. This dude is silent, he can sneak into places, kill people, get away without being noticed, and he has a kit that doesn't make much of a mess, but even if he were to make a mess, it wouldn't matter, because by the time the body gets discovered, it would be miles away. I honestly don't see a situation where Genji gets caught at all, unless he just turns complete smooth brain and decides to kill in a densely populated area. Next up is Hanzo. Now I think Hanzo would get to the same situation that Genji's in, but he would get there a lot slower, mostly because he's a human and Genji's a cyborg human, because Hanzo's bow would be really effective in silently killing his victims whilst remaining undetectable, and he can also kill them from a very long range. That way by the time they pinpoint the shooter's location, Hanzo's already long gone. And just like Genji, he's also a trained assassin, so he knows exactly where to go in order to remain stealthy. So I'm gonna put him at S tier, but I'm gonna put him right below Genji, because I think he would have significantly less bodies than Genji due to his kit not being as effective. Now next up we got Junkrat, and I'm gonna give this man infinite bodies tier, because all you gotta do is look at his disgusting, ugly fucking face, and there's a 99% chance that you just fall over in cardiac arrest due to you glancing at this disgusting creature for less than half a nanosecond. This dude could walk into the continent of Asia and kill half of the population just due to the aroma and stench that marinates from this dude's presence in a 3,000 mile radius. So I guess the lesson of the day is to wear deodorant, or else you're gonna end up like Junkrat, killing half of the world's population just due to your presence. Next up is Mei, and on the complete opposite scale of Junkrat, I think Mei would go in F tier, simply because she's too nice of a person, and if she were to ever murder somebody, it would definitely be an accident. I mean, technically she does have like 4 bodies, because isn't she the person that activated the cryo chambers in her cinematic? I don't know, she seemed pretty distraught when she did that. Then again, I don't think those bodies were ever discovered, and thinking about it, hiding bodies in ice wouldn't be that bad of an idea. idea. She could just create a giant tomb, put a body inside of it, and fill it with like miles and miles of thick ice. And if anybody was ever hot on her trail, she could just seduce them with her thick thighs. Next up is Farah. Farah would definitely be highly effective. Her kick could kill a lot of people really quick. She definitely wouldn't be stealthy, but I think she has enough firepower to kill her target and then quickly kill the witnesses before they have time to report her crimes. I think the Al-Qaeda terrorists should definitely recruit Farah, because she's just too effective at blowing shit up. Next up we got Reaper. Now when I was thinking of a Halloween special idea, I was actually looking at a picture of Reaper, and then I instantly thought, wow, this dude could definitely get away with murder. He has his shotgun, so it would be messy, but all he would have to do is infiltrate wherever the fuck his victims are, 200 pump them, wraith form away, and teleport to a different country. He could rinse and repeat that, and nobody would ever stop him, meaning he is the perfect candidate to put in S tier. Next up is Sojourn. Now I don't know why, but whenever I look at Sojourn, I get slight extra chromey homie vibes. Like I feel like she's not the brightest. Then again, I would definitely still hit, but that's not what this video is about. This is about how many bodies Sojourn has. And I reckon she's got mid-50s, because she could kill quick, and she'd be semi-decent at evacuating due to her slide and jump, but I just can't escape the fact that I don't think she has a very high intelligence quotient. And that also refers to the players who call Sojourn their main. I feel like Sojourn's about as intelligent as Stephen Hawking post-mortem, meaning she can't go higher than B tier. So next up we got Soldier. Now since Soldier is a soldier, that means he has war experience, meaning he knows how to kill somebody and he knows how to kill them effectively. He has a very basic assault rifle, meaning it could be easily traced back to him, but he also has aimbot, meaning he could easily overpower and kill anybody who tries to stop him. And according to his cinematic, he's also a pretty sneaky bastard, and if need be, he could evade his pursuers by running away. And he's also old as fuck, meaning he's wise. So I'm gonna have to give him S tier. Next up is Sombra. Now Sombra's a little smarty pants, right? Like she does her little hacking and shit, and she could go invisible and assassinate anybody she wants and then instantly teleport away. But similar to Reinhardt, I feel like she's just too cocky, and I feel like she would take on a challenge that's just too much for her to chew. But since she doesn't have a giant hammer that can effectively and easily kill multiple targets at once, I think she would kill significantly less people to Reinhardt, so I'm gonna put her at the top of D tier. Next up is Symmetra. Now based off the very limited amount of knowledge I have on Symmetra, she seems like a very nice and polite person, and I don't see her wanting to kill people. But if she had to, I think she could easily molest about anybody in sight, especially if she gets her charge up on her death ray gun, because once that happens, about any material in her sight instantly gets evaporated, leaving no witnesses behind. And if she ever needed to, she does have a long range attack to snipe necessary targets, and she has a teleporter to evade pursuers. So overall, I think Symmetra is a pretty B tier killer. Next up is Torbjorn. Now Torbjorn doesn't murder people, he fucks them and creates children, very beautiful children I might add, and he's also like 4 inches tall, so I have to give him F. Next up is Tarser. Now Tracer's British, so she would probably die of beans poisoning before she has the chance to kill anyone. I'll still give her C tier though, just due to her blink and being able to teleport around and shit. Next up is Venture. Now Venture drills people all night long, and I feel like they'd also have a very unique way of killing people and disposing bodies. Okay, have you ever seen the movie Tremors? I feel like they would be a graboid from Tremors. They would burrow underground and then get underneath you, drill up, suck you in, suffocate you in the dirt, maybe drill your asshole a couple times to open up a gaping hole for them to fuck. Dude, I keep realizing I'm saying her, and it's starting to really piss me off. But overall, I think Venture would be a solid C tier killer, just because they'd be very limited in the environment that they could kill you effectively and sneakily. Next up is Widow. Now just like it says in the thumbnail, she's easily going in S tier, because she's a trained assassin with an absolutely magnificent ass. Man, so she could be walking down the street, not even being conspicuous, and due to the aura of them ass cheeks, every man in a mile radius would instantly get a hard on and start flocking towards Widow's location. And then once they start coming, she can grapple up under the nearest skyscraper and start using that canonical Widowmaker aim to take victim after victim, indefinitely adding numbers to her body count. So she's definitely worthy of S. Next up is Ana, and I'm not gonna go too deep into Ana. Well, I mean I would, but I'm not gonna break her down too much, because she's canonically more accurate than Widowmaker, meaning everything I just said about Widowmaker also applies to Ana. And she also has better abilities than Widowmaker, with her sleep dart and grenade, so she could use those abilities if she ever gets into a pinch. But yeah, I'm gonna put Ana in S tier right above Widow. Next up is Baptiste. Now Baptiste is black, so he would probably get shot by the police before he even had the chance to kill anyone. F tier. Next up is Brig. Now I could see Brig easily having a body count well into the hundreds, because she could easily seduce her victims like Ted Bundy and just lure them to a secluded area and then and mace them like this is fucking Roman times, leaving no witnesses but the raging hard-on in their pants, and nobody would bat an eye, because the only thing their eyes are batting are her prestigious looks and personality. So I'm gonna put Brig in S tier. Next up, we got Iari. Now, I think the only effective thing in Iari's kit would be her Hiroshima, but I think she could only use that once and then just instantly get gunned down, and I don't think she has many stealthy abilities to be able to evade detection for a long period of time. So in the grand scheme of things, she wouldn't be the best serial killer. So I'm gonna give her a solid D, and I would definitely give her a D, let me tell you. Next up is Juno, and it's a good thing we're not talking about their other type of body count, because she would without a question be an S with an arse like that. But in terms of serial killer body counts, she would probably be a D tier, or hell, maybe even an F tier. I'm gonna leave her at D, just cause she's too fucking nice. Next up is Kiriko. Now she's a sister of the Shimadas, so she would be a decent killer by default, because growing up with Hanzo and Genji, aka the two best assassins in Overwatch, she's clearly gonna learn how to kill people stealthily and evade detection. But I don't think her kit is nearly as effective as her brother's in being able to kill people quickly, and her outfit is definitely not inconspicuous in even the slightest terms. And she's also a hot Asian woman, meaning she would attract a lot of attention. So I'm gonna give her a B tier. Next up is Lifeweaver. This man would never get caught. People would just be starstruck every time they look at him due to his penal pumping physique. Even if somebody knew he was a serial killer, they wouldn't turn him in just for the slight off chance that Lifeweaver let him touch his abs. But it's not gonna happen, because that right's reserved for me specifically. So I'm giving Lifeweaver an S above everybody else. Please let me hit. Next up is Lucio. F tier. Only way he'd be killing anybody is with his trash ass music. Next up is Mercy. Okay, now murder just does not fit Mercy's description, like at all. But then again, if she were to start killing people, she would have pretty much the perfect alibi, because she's known to help people and heal people, meaning if she was secretly murdering people, nobody would suspect that, and she could get away with that for a hell of a long time. Then again, I don't think it would last forever, and I also feel weird putting an angel in S tier for a serial killer tier list, so I'm gonna give her A tier. Next up is Moira. I'd let her suck me. Okay, if we're being honest, Moira's suck takes like 10 seconds to kill a fully HP target, meaning if you were to have 200 health points, you would have time to run to fucking Zimbabwe and back before she could even take half of your health bar away. The problem is, her stench would probably kill you before she even reaches your eyesight. So, Mommy Moira would probably be a high C. I see. Lastly, we got Zen. Now, very similar to Mercy, Zen probably wouldn't get caught due to his history of helping other people, or other robots rather. And I think it'd be pretty effective if he were to start murder deathing. So I'm gonna put my boy right next to Mercy in A tier. Wow, this is weird as fuck. Junkrat and Zenyatta are high up on the list. This is definitely the only time you're seeing this shit. And that's the succulent serial killer tier list. Sorry if I sound like I'm half fucking dead. It's like 3 a.m. on a Thursday as I'm recording this right now. So I hope you can live with me sounding like a fucking corpse. I mean, I wish I sounded like corpse, but yeah, that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching, y'all. I love you, and have a great Halloween.